Can you really blow a hurricane? Of course, by blowing fans at it. Or can you really stop a hurricane by shooting at it? With the latter, at least one Florida sheriff advising against it. But in this video, I'll show you exactly how much it takes to stop a hurricane. So Hurricane Irma, not only the most powerful hurricane in recorded history, it's also spawned some of the most powerful levels of stupidity. Like Rush Limbaugh saying that hurricanes are fake news, put out there by the leftist media, pushing this crazy agenda of global warming. You know, because things like the surface temperature of the Atlantic is about a degree hotter than it was 100 years ago. You know, all those crazy leftists with their crazy agenda, also known as science. You know, the science that tells us that hurricanes gain their intensity from the heat of the ocean. So, having branded it all as sort of fake news, he then decides to evacuate when the hurricane starts heading his way. And he can probably be considered lucky in that another climate change denier, Milo Yiannopoulos.
No, I don't believe in man-made climate change at all. But
you don't?
No.
You don't believe in it?
No, I don't think it's. I don't think we're affecting the climate significantly. No.
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 So all those scientists, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
If you take him at his word, which usually you have to do with a pinch of salt, claims that his house has been destroyed by Hurricane Irma.
I remain hopeful for humanity and the planet. Not because I think we are going to drastically reduce carbon emissions in the next couple of years, but because climate scientists have proven to us that they are quite effective at predicting the polar opposite of what is actually going on. In a 2007 forecast report by the IPCC, they predicted that we would see more hurricanes and typhoons that were more intense with heavier wind speeds and larger peaks.
The strongest Atlantic Ocean hurricane ever recorded.
The people conducting research whose very job is predicated on the idea that climate change is an imminent threat.
In Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, all threatened by the most powerful Atlantic hurricane ever seen.
For the headlines regarding Irma, unprecedented power. We've had 185-mile-per-hour winds now for 24 hours. That has never happened before in recorded history.
Climate scientists have proven to us that they are quite effective at predicting the polar opposite of what is actually going on.
Mayor is calling for a local state of emergency as the most powerful hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic Ocean made landfall in the Caribbean.
Hey, everybody, here's the latest on Hurricane Irma, still incredibly powerful. Cat 5 is 156 miles an hour. This is 185.
In a 2007 forecast report by the IPCC,
I mean, look, we now know the IPCC reports from the UN are, total horse.
They predicted that we would see more hurricanes and typhoons that were more intense with heavier wind speeds and larger peaks.
And he actually said that there was all that buzz going on, remember, before this storm happened, about it could be a Cat 6. Well, if you actually do the math, technically, it would be categorized as a Category 6 hurricane if there was such a thing.
Climate scientists have proven to us that they are quite effective at predicting the polar opposite of what is actually going on.
Hurricane Katrina was $100 billion estimated, Sandy $60 billion. And when you look at the amount of water damage, you look at the area covered, and you look at the aftermath.
Yet 2013 was the quietest hurricane season in recorded history.
That are going to last for weeks and months. But the extent of the damage, 52 inches of rain, the record rainfall, highest rain from a storm ever in the continental United States.
The money they're talking about early on won't come close to addressing what they're dealing with, right?
Because clearly, hurricanes never happened before. It's this picture from 2004. These hurricanes were fake hurricanes, okay? Just like fake news, they were fake hurricanes.
Great argument there, PewDiePie. I don't know why we waste our time with all these climate scientists when we have you to tell us that we had hurricanes before. Therefore, more intense hurricanes can't be due to climate change. I mean, what other pearls of wisdom you got for us? We've had hottest years before, therefore the current rash of hottest years can't be due to global warming. 1998 was the hottest year on record. Then 2005 was the hottest year on record. Then 2010, then 2014, then 2015, and now 2016 was the hottest year on record. Or if you want to do it by decades, the 80s was the hottest decade on record. Then the 90s was the hottest decade on record. Then the noughties were the hottest decade on record. And now the teens is thus far the hottest decade on record.
Twice. Washington. You should have thought twice, Washington, before you started those fires. Mother Nature is real mad, okay? That's right, Washington. You should have thought twice before voting for Trump, Washington. It's so disgusting to me seeing these celebrities using these natural disasters and, blaming these fires caused by teenagers to further their political agenda.
Oh, God, yeah, Booty Pie. One teenager with fireworks not only dried out the entire West, but started all of these fires with fireworks. You muppet. You might be happy to know that I was actually driving around the West about a few weeks ago, and this is what I noticed.
Say, is this place is ready to burn. Jesus.
Oh, hey, here's another one. Seeing as I was just driving through this one less than 2 weeks ago. You see all those dead trees there? Miles after miles of dead trees. Do you know what caused that?
This is Rocky Mountain National Park. These are all the trees killed by the pine beetle. Thousands and thousands of them. And this is because it's not as cold here in winter anymore. And so the pine beetles have just killed all the lower elevation trees.
Now, we might have, great minds here saying things like, well, we've had pine beetles before, so what's the big deal?
It just goes on and on. Dead trees are dead trees. Holy smokes. Look at that. All of them. That's incredible. Tens of thousands of dead trees. Crap, what of them up ahead?
And you drive about 400 miles northwest of the Rockies and you get to the Wind Rivers.
That's squared up. And here I am in the Wind Rivers. And you just have to look around. Somewhere between half and 70% of the trees here are dead from the pine beetle.
So in places like the Rockies and the Wind Rivers, they've turned mile after mile after mile of hillside into forestry graveyard.
I'm not a big believer in man-made climate change. There could be some impact, but I don't believe it's a devastating impact. But no, I would say that it goes up, it goes down. I think it's very much like this over the years. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Before you started those fires, Mother Nature is real mad, okay? That's right, Washington. You should have thought twice before voting.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
Well, I hate to be the stickler for reality here, but the reality is the atmosphere is heating up, and these are consequences of it. What you're looking at here isn't some freak one-off thing that you'll never see again. This is the new normal for the planet, and it'll be like this, or worse, for the rest of your life. And you might say, well, so what? Some forests die up in the mountains. Why should I care? Well, those are the trees that holds the snowpack that provides the water runoff for large portions of America. Now, I know you'd like to dismiss those with fact and reality on their side as sort of pushing some form of agenda.
It's so disgusting to me seeing these celebrities using these natural disasters and, blaming these fires caused by teenagers to further their political agenda.
But that's not how fact or reality work. It's for the rest of your life, whether you believe in it or not. And I know you'd love some sort of display of moral outrage will somehow mean that the Earth isn't warming.
You know, whatever side of it may be, the fact that they use this, to me, is so fucking gross.
But again, that's not how facts or reality work. And you know what? It probably wasn't the smartest of moves at this point in time to elect a retarded president who thinks that reality is just some sort of conspiracy.
I think that there'll be little change here. It'll go up, it'll get a little cooler, it'll get a little warmer like it always has for millions of years. I don't believe that what they say, I think it's a big scam for a lot of people to make a lot of money.
I mean, we said early Tuesday that this would be the costliest natural disaster in American history.
Global warming, I meant climate change. Let me explain a little more. To be a science denier at all to the current climate change coalition, you merely need to be skeptical of any one of these four things. Number one, that the Earth is warming.
Yeah, Steve, that's right. The reason that you get labeled a climate change denier or a science denier, but not just by the climate change coalition, whatever the hell that is, but by anyone who can tell fact from fantasy, is because the actual data shows the Earth is warming. You see how that works? You deny science, and for some completely weird and unexplained reason, you get called a science denier.
Now, I know what you're thinking and or saying to your computer screens. Who are you? That's me. To create a video debunking climate change. You're no atmospheric scientist. See, the thing about that is, neither are you.
Yes, Steve, but I can read a graph. You see, I look at a graph like this and correctly read it that the Earth is warming. While you look at a graph like this and say, I'm not so sure this shows whether the Earth is warming or not.
Oh yeah, by the way, they call that the pause. Yeah, by the way, there was a complete and total dead stop to all global warming for over 15 years, and rather than readjust their models, current climate scientists employed by your tax dollars simply chalk it up to being the pause.
Damn, you smugly sit there, gloating that Kilimanjaro hasn't completely melted yet. Look, see, it's got lots of snow.
Just like contrary to Al Gore saying that Mount Kilimanjaro would have no snow within the decade, there's plenty of snow, still, year-round.
Like this is some great debating point while glossing over the fact that it's lost some 85% of its ice mass.
There's plenty of snow, still, year-round. Do we sometimes see it decrease? Absolutely. Anything close to catastrophic? Many scientists say no.
I mean, you really are the retard who sits there and says, I mean, sure, there are some times when the planet heats up more than it cools down, but that doesn't mean it's gotten any hotter. And even if it did, there are many scientists who say that's nothing catastrophic.
We are going to get in closer now and take a look at this massive eye that was 23 miles in diameter.
I mean, we said early Tuesday that this would be the costliest natural disaster in American history.
I mean, this is why you can sit there in the hottest August of the hottest year, in the hottest decade on record, claiming with a straight face that you're debunking global warming.
Now, I know what you're thinking and or saying to your computer screens. Who are you? That's me. To create a video debunking climate change.
But hey, you're right. A once-in-a-500-year event followed merely weeks later by the strongest hurricane in recorded history does not a trend make. But when you're into 16 out of the 17 hottest years on record, being in the last 17 years, you know, since the year 2000, you might be looking at a trend.
Oh yeah, by the way, they call that the pause. Yeah, by the way, there was a complete and total dead stop to all global warming for over 15 years, and rather than readjust their models, current climate scientists employed by your tax dollars simply chalk it up to being the pause.
And of course, if you dare to disagree with Stephen, you know, that he's simply denying reality here, then you're probably one of those crazy people who believe that gender is a figment of your imagination.
Unless you accept all of those points wholesale, you are labeled a science denier by the same people who often push the idea that gender is merely a figment of your imagination. But that's none of my business.
Nah, Steve, you get called a climate change denier by those crazy people that think that facts matter. Cute irony, of course, being that Stephen compares his critics to crazy people who just make up shit to fit their fantasy. You know, just to make themselves happy, while he's happily just making shit up to keep his own little delusional world happy. The projection of ideologues. Oh yeah, I know, all of a sudden the people who want to blow the hurricane off course by using fans or shooting at it look comparatively sane, and at least that's possible, in principle. Whereas looking at a graph like this and saying, I see no warming, is the kind of guy who would sit on the deck of the Titanic watching the water rising saying, look, you can show me these rising sea levels all you want. I'm just not convinced that that proves that the ship is sinking. Now, of course, in principle, there's nothing actually wrong with the idea of blowing the hurricane off course with fans. It's just like solar roadways and the Hyperloop. It's a great idea in principle. It's a little under par when you consider some of the technical details. So these are just some ballpark hurricane numbers. Let's take Irma as being 300 miles across, about 500 kilometers, or 500,000 meters. So it's about 250,000 meters in radius, which means it has a footprint of about 200 billion square meters. Now, hurricanes basically occupy the entire of the atmosphere from bottom to top. So the whole of the atmosphere pushing down on a square meter is atmospheric pressure, which is basically 10 tons per meter squared. So you can check out this video to find out why you have 20 tons or so pushing on your skin at the moment. Cool. So that means that for this storm, there's about 2,000 trillion kilograms of mass in this hurricane. Now let's skip some of the unnecessary details about differential rotating mathematics for this ballpark example, and just say that this hurricane, all the mass in it is traveling at 150 miles per hour. We've got winds of 150 miles per hour throughout the whole hurricane, which is about 67 meters per second. Cool, so from there, the energy is trivial. It's half mv squared, which gives us the energy of the hurricane as about 4 billion joules. Now, that's not a number that's going to resonate with anyone here. So let's just calculate how much that would cost if we were to get it in electricity. So it's about 1 trillion kilowatt hours, and a kilowatt hour costs about 10 cents. So just the energy cost to stop a hurricane like this by blowing fans at it would be about $100 billion, which actually wasn't far off the damage that Harvey did. Alternatively, you could express the energy in terms of nukes. Now, 1 ton of TNT is about 4 billion joules. So, give or take, this is going to be about 1 billion tons of TNT equivalent. That's not a kiloton. It's not a megaton, which would be hydrogen bomb range. It would be a gigaton nuke. And the scale of this probably shouldn't surprise you too much at this point, in that the largest nuclear bomb ever blown up was the Tsar bomb. It was 50 megatons. And even at that, the fireball was only a couple of kilometers across, which would easily fit in the eye of this hurricane. And the complete destruction zone around the Tsar bomb was about 40 kilometers. Again, tiny compared to the size and force of a hurricane. And just so we're clear, the Tsar bomb at 50 megatons was about the same mass as all of the munitions expended in World War II. So, how many bullets would you have to shoot to stop a hurricane like this? Well, a bullet is about 1,000 joules apiece. So you would need about 4 to the power of 15 bullets. Now let's just say, for the sake of argument, to make our numbers easy, that there are 4 billion people on the planet. So if everyone were to fire 1 million or so bullets, that would give you about the same energy as this hurricane. Now a machine gun can fire about 1,000 rounds per minute. So everyone on Earth would have to fire machine guns for 1,000 minutes to shoot your 1 million bullets, which would take, give or take, about 14 hours. Yeah, one hurricane or a few billion people firing machine guns non-stop for 14 hours. However, that's not all the energy in this storm. I mean, let's just take ballpark numbers, the rainfall from, say, Harvey. Now, Harvey dumped about 1 meter of water over an area. So let's just say it dumps 1 meter of water over this entire area. Now, a cubic meter of water weighs a ton, 1,000 kilograms. So all that came from about a mile or a couple of kilometers up in the atmosphere, about 2,000 meters. So the energy to move all of that water all the way up in the atmosphere is mass times the acceleration from gravity, which is about 10 meters per second squared, times by the height, which is about 2,000 meters. So, ballpark numbers, the energy of just the water falling is comparable to the wind speed energy of the hurricane. And I just want to stress, these are just ballpark, back of the envelope type calculations, just to try and put the scale of the energy in a hurricane into perspective. However, that's peanuts compared to where the real energy is in these storms. Merely to take 1 kilo of water and break all the hydrogen bonds in that water to turn it into vapor takes about 2 million joules of energy. So just the energy of getting the water into the vapor phase for a storm like this is about 100 times the wind energy in this storm. And of course, that amount of energy is released when that water condenses out of the vapor phase and condenses back into the liquid again. So these are just some back of the envelope calculations. It didn't really matter whether the energy of a hurricane's measured in tens of gigatons or megatons of TNT. The point is, when you're dealing with a sun-atmosphere interaction, even a tiny fraction of a percent difference in the energy fluxes are just off the scale of anything that mankind is capable of. And this is just one hurricane, not the whole atmosphere. And you've got to bear in mind that this is the new normal. Even if carbon emissions are stopped completely tomorrow, it will take thousands of years for that atmospheric carbon dioxide to start coming down, if it ever does. What you're looking at is the new normal. And I got to admit, I find it kind of sad that even with climate change as clearly a demonstrable fact as the sun rising in the east, so this is not some far off conjecture, it's something that we're going to have to live with for the rest of our lives. And there are still folks out there who cheer when President Trump does things like pull out of the Paris Climate Accords. There are folks who make videos in the hottest year in recorded history denying climate change. Oh yeah, and that's something else we're going to have to accept as the new normal. It's a phrase you're going to hear a lot of in the future, that it's the present year is the hottest year in recorded history. And at that, many thanks to those who supported this video through Patreon. And if you want to support media like this, the links are below.